welcome to QI, where we have an ill-assorted imbroglio of interesting items initiated by I. Here for your immediate inspection are the inestimable John Bishop, the inimitable Frank Skinner, the incomparable Sean Locke, and Alan Davis is also in. Now, this evening, their buzzers are intentionally irritating. John goes... Frank goes...
How long is this show?
It depends how often you use the buzzer. Sean goes... Oh! And Alan goes... Well... Now, as John and Frank have never played the game before, I should explain that each of you has a nobody knows placard. You might just like to show it. It's a question mark.
Nobody knows.
That's it. There will be a question tonight to which nobody knows the answer. And if you think, when I ask that question, that this is the question to which there is no known answer, you wave your card and you get extra points.
It looks like they had Strictly Come Dancing one night and someone did a dance so experimental.
You can consider it that way. Now, to warm up the new boys, here's an easy one to begin with. What's the French for innuendo?
Is it double entendre?
Oh!
No, just remember that double entendre is French for big tits, isn't it?
The double entendre means nothing to a Frenchman. You could say double entente. Entente is like a...
Two-man tent.
Or double sens, double sense, but they don't say double entendre.
So it's a French phrase that the French don't use, so
Yes.
it's not French.
Exactly. And that's precisely what this round of questions is about. There are other examples of that. Suppose you're at a performance, someone is very brilliant, and you want them to perform again.
Encore.
You'd shout encore. What would they shout in France?
More.
Good thought. But encore is a French word meaning more, but they don't shout encore when they want. They shout a Latin word, which means twice.
Twice.
Anyone? Anyone in the audience? Bis, bis, B-I-S.
Beef.
Bis, bis, yeah, that's what they shout.
That's crap.
Try encore.
You'd hate to do a show, wouldn't you? And at the end, everyone goes, beef! It's like that.
Well, there are other phrases which we use, which sound French, but again mean nothing to a Frenchman. Cause célèbre is not a French phrase. Like ensuite for a bathroom, the French wouldn't... They'd go, what?
Yeah. What about bidet?
Bidet they do indeed have, though it's easier really to do a handstand in the shower, to be honest. And if you want the expense of a bidet, yes.
Easier.
If you're as nimble as I am, yeah.
I'd pay good money to see that. I'd like to see you doing that with the camera going, tweet this.
The trouble is with the handstand in the shower, though, it's like, you know when you see a mountain stream and you think the water looks all right, but I don't know where it's been further on. When you're upside down and this water is pouring across your face, lodging in your nostrils, and you know that it's been...
Oh, that's a worry.
That's what puts... I had a friend who, he had read somewhere that if you slept upside down, it made you more intelligent because the blood went to your brain.
Yeah.
And I became obsessed with the idea that he would have a wet dream and die.
Oh, that's so, in so many ways, a horrific image.
Oh, man. He also... This guy also told us that a Chinese burn, you know a Chinese burn? Yeah. It's called a Chinese burn because in China it's a form of torture.
Yeah.
I was taught that at school.
Sort of thing people, school children...
So a student in Tiananmen Square, he stopped and a soldier says, you, come here, arm out. Yeah, be careful.
Next time, he'd be dead leg.
I like the way you resisted the opportunity to go dead reg.
Yeah, we're not ready for those jokes.
Oh, no. So, yes, there are words we use. Décolletage, for example, we use for that. The French use décolleté for that, not décolletage.
Excuse me, when you say we, you mean you?
Well, It's not a common phrase, but it's...
No, it's not. No, let me say, look at the décolletage on that.
Could you put...
You never stop learning. I've already learned how to say to my teenage sons, look at the knockers on that, without the mum getting annoyed.
And now you can say décolletage.
Décolletage, look
I
at
that. Also, ensuite, which is used commonly these days for a bathroom that's connected to a bedroom. In France, they don't use the phrase
And, of course,
ensuite.
the ensuite.
Exactly. Do not.
Commonly used.
There's a Greek phrase. The Greeks say katatria staeftika, I think it is. And it means who gives a shit. No. But literally it means there is trouble in the gypsy village.
It's true.
Depending on where you are on the social calendar, it's right, isn't it? It's, you know, most people wouldn't give a shit if they...
Anyway, that's the point. You can ask a Frenchman for double entendre if you like, but you'll be lucky if he gives you one. Now to some... Thank you very much. Now to some iTunes. Who wrote the songs I'm Leaning on a Lamppost and When I'm Cleaning Windows? Yeah.
Definitely not George Formby, even though his wife, Beryl, insisted that George had a credit so that he'd get money.
You're absolutely right. I happen to know you're a bit of a fan of George Formby, aren't you?
I am, indeed, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm Leaning on a Lamppost was one of his big hits, as is When I'm Cleaning Windows.
When I'm cleaning windows, is that the one that's really a bit dodgy?
Well, there was a phrase in here, the blushing bride, she looks divine, the bridegroom, he is doing fine, I'd rather have his job than mine when I'm cleaning windows. The BBC banned it. However, George Formby was invited to do a performance at Windsor in front of the royal family in 1941, and some troops during the war, obviously, and the Queen Mother insisted he sing the song properly, not with any cut verses. And she liked it so much she asked him to sing it another 2 or 3 times, but the BBC still banned it.
There's a George Formby lyric, my favourite, Double Entendre, and he says, I wonder who's under her balcony now. Who's kissing my girl? Does he kiss her under the nose or underneath the archway where the Sweet William grows?
Whoa! Now, you're a special group, George Formby fans, and it's usual amongst George Formby fans, I believe, that they teach themselves the banjolele. And as you are one, we have a banjolele. Can you delight us with some Formby?
Am I on the spot?
I don't know if it's tuned or not, but I mean, just do what
don't worry about that.
We'd be very happy.
My dog has fleas, is what you need to remember. My dog has... Well, this one doesn't have fleas, he has distemper. When I'm cleaning windows, there's got another bit that goes, 8 o'clock, a girl awakes at 8:10, a bath she takes, 1/4 my ladder breaks when I'm cleaning windows. The bit that goes, there's a famous movie queen, she looks a beauty on the screen, she's more like 80 than 18. When I'm cleaning windows, she takes her hair down all behind, then takes down her nevermind, and finally takes down the blind. When I'm cleaning windows...
Cheeky! Brilliant. Oh. Thank you very much, I'm very touched with it. So what is it about George Formby that was... He was one of the biggest film stars of his time in Britain, wasn't he?
I went to his grave, and there's a massive, great white stone, and the big face, and it says George Formby, and it's a massive monument. And when you get closer, you realise it's his dad.
Because he was junior, wasn't he?
His dad was a massive musical star, and at the bottom it says also George Formby, OBE, blah, blah, blah. So he got terrible billing, even on his own grave.
And the wife you alluded to, Beryl, was fanatically jealous and wouldn't let him... I mean, if a makeup girl on a film so much as smiled at him, she'd have her sacked, wouldn't she? She was very...
Indeed, but I think George got away with quite a lot of saucy behaviour.
Again.
Exactly, it turned out nice quite a lot.
Yes.
George used to say that Beryl only gave him 5 bob a week pocket money, but his brother claimed after George died that that was something that George came up with, so when he was in the bar, he'd say, I'd love to get around him, but Beryl only gives me 5 bob a week.
But there is a tradition, I don't know how much it exists in other languages, whether it is a peculiarly English thing, of the tradition of Frankie Howard, Carry On and so on.
It must exist in other languages, it must.
I guess it must. Even in America, it doesn't really. They just don't seem to set the same story.
They seem a bit more mature, maybe.
Maybe they are more mature.
More sophisticated, they've got over it. Yeah, that did us till we were about 8.
Yeah.
In other countries, that kind of symbolism is terribly sad and portentous and awful. Like, all of Ibsen's plays are about
Yes, true.
The master builder's about towers and erections, and it just means the man's sad and
That's right, it's misery,
lusts
isn't
after
it?
women he can't possibly have, and everyone sits in the theatre and, oh, God, this is awful.
Well, in England, it would be Benny Hill going...
They can be very clever, though, those
Oh,
innuendos.
yes.
Do you remember that? There used to be a form of joke, and it used to be, she was only a so-and-so's daughter.
She was only a road mender's daughter, but she liked having her asphalt, or whatever it was.
That's it.
She was only a fishmonger's daughter, but she could lay it on the slab and say, fill it.
Yes.
Does anyone recognise the photograph there behind you, then, where that's from?
That's from Round the Horn.
Round the Horn, a hugely successful radio series in the 1960s. That's Kenneth Horne in the middle, and they pushed the boundaries of innuendo probably further than they'd ever been pushed in British comic life, especially with the two characters on the left, Kenneth Williams and Hugh Paddock, who played a couple called Jules and Sandy, who basically used gay slang in the 1960s, lunchtime Radio 2 comedy at a time when millions listened. They were doing, I mean, extraordinary stuff. I mean, really quite...
But that was the great thing, is they'd got that Polari thing.
Yeah.
They had their own language.
With their own
so
language,
they could say, oh, God, my lallies are so tired and all that. And people literally had no idea, but it sounded funny.
That's right, yeah, I know. It is...
And as long as you go every now and again...
I know. Anyway, there you are. So there's rudery around. Anyway, the point is, that's probably nothing. And if I see another double entendre, I'll whip it out and probably stick a blue pencil through it. Now, now to an initiative test. I want everybody here, and I'm including the audience, I love the audience, I want you to think of your favourite colour, all right? And on the count of three, I want you to shout it out as loud as you can, all right? You'll affect everyone in the room, OK? So, 1, 2, 3... Hey! OK, so, Frank, what did John shout?
I was mainly listening to me.
Yes. Do you know what Frank shouted?
Pink.
Did you shout pink?
No.
Do you know what Alan shouted?
Red.
Did you shout red?
No.
Do you know what Sean shouted?
Blue.
I thought you shouted yellow. What did you shout?
Blue.
Oh, you shouted blue.
That was a
It's
guess. That was a
interesting.
guess, wasn't it?
Oh, I'd say shade blue.
No, you did, well, you didn't know.
Really loud.
The fact is, of course, it is very common, and these are used in strange sort of tests for teamwork and things. It's very common for people simply not to listen to other people when they're speaking, perhaps. Not. It's not unusual, if you make a noise yourself, to be, frankly, only aware of what?
Sorry, I wasn't...
Oh, I beg your pardon. And there are, as you know, people who make money out of paying management people to take courses in teamwork, and it seems it's very, very important that even when you're shouting loudly, you should hear what the other person is saying.
Load of bollocks.
You should have seen me when I first saw this, because if there is a profession, it is that of people who basically get management people to pay them to tell them the art of the soap because it makes your nose bleed. When you're speaking, it's really important that people hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, we do a 4-week course on this.
The one I like is the people who come around to your house and give you advice on what to do to it so it will sell.
Oh, really?
And it's
Especially when you don't want to sell it.
Yes. Particularly annoying.
Went in the toilet, put the toilet seat down, the lid down, and said, lid down when showing.
Oh, really? So no floating solids. I always tell my clients
Flush
that.
it first.
Yes.
And I would stop the family doing handstands in the shower.
It's a living B-day.
Pay the full price for colonic irrigation. Don't do it like that.
I'll tell you something, we're being very critical here, but the next time I'm in a situation where I have to shout out a colour simultaneously with a lot of other people, I'm going to pay a lot more attention.
Yeah, that's good to know. That's, you're advancing.
I said blue, but really I meant red.
But I also...
That's really difficult.
I also don't think that works, because I think there's parts of your psyche that means if you're making a noise, you can't hear a noise.
I think that would make choral singing an impossibility, if that were true.
That's it. Especially when they do that I Can Sing a Rainbow song.
Yes.
You know, it might surprise you, I've not been in a lot of choirs. But that's a good point. But I've lived that life where we've had... Because I used to have a normal life in a corporate world, corporate sector, and I've been on training days.
Oh, you've actually been on bloody things. And were they all absolute...
There's just... I mean, there's some parts of it that you think, this could be good, this. Yeah, I can see what's going on here, where they say, look, you know, there's an issue within the company, you've all got different views. Why don't you draw a picture? All get together. Instead of talking about, let's draw a picture, you go, what are we going to draw a picture? Just anything that comes into your mind. Not a cock. Apparently... It's getting to the bottom of a corporate infrastructure, cock drawing and saying, that's you, doesn't really help. And we had all these things, and honest to God, you do get to it and you start looking at these people and think, you live your life like this. You can see them going home to the kids saying, come on, you know, I could make you tea. But wouldn't it be better if you made your tea? Wouldn't you feel better as a team if we made tea together? If it wouldn't be better if tea didn't exist. Let's all think. Draw your tea. And let's remove it as an issue.
Well, it's just becoming rapidly more clear there are many people on Earth who need to be killed, and nearly all of them are management consultants. Hopefully that classic piece of management school trickery will have taught you all a valuable lesson about the importance of listening. So listen to this. What is an interrobang?
Is it the way you ask a question? Some people, like the Australians, finish all their sentences like it's a question.
Oh,
it's the lift,
you mean
the
they speak
inflection.
as if everything's a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes up at the end?
Yeah.
No, it isn't that. They sometimes call that the AQI, the Australian Question Intonation, but that's not it. It's a punctuation mark that had a brief vogue, and it consisted of a question mark, which is the interro part, and a bang is a printer's name for an exclamation mark. And there it is. That's how it looked. And it was...
I love it.
It's rather good, isn't it? Yeah. You should use it, because you know that sometimes when you're typing a letter and you want to go, what the heck, you know? And it's sort of not really a question, but because it begins with what, though, you think maybe it should be a question. And that's the symbol
well,
that
people do it. You do see
Yeah.
people, they'll put a question mark and then an exclamation mark
Yes.
to kind of make that point.
Precisely. And there were, in the 1960s, at a brief vogue, and there were typewriters that had it as a character. And it does exist as a Unicode character in the ASCII set.
What does that mean when sometimes you see a question mark upside down on a text? What does that mean?
Well, in Spain, of course, they do that.
One at the start.
Is that what it is?
It means someone's in the shower. Just get...
In Spain, a question begins with an upside down and ends with a right way up one. And indeed, they did an upside down interrobang, which was known as a gnabaretni, which is just interrobang backwards.
A gnabaretni?
Gnabaretni, yeah.
Do-do-do-do-do.
There was the sarcastrophe.
Oh,
Which is a little like a circumflex accent the French used to have, what's called a carrot, you know, little sort of little hat shape, and you'd put that. Oh, that is really funny outside the really would indicate that you were being sarcastic.
I'll tell you what has always frustrated me, and that is that on a standard typewriter keyboard, that when you hit the semicolon,
Yes.
it's just you just have to hit the key, but to get the colon, you have to press
Yes.
that other key. If I was a colon, I'd think, surely I take precedence in this. You are merely a semi version of me. I should be the one that just needs one key.
I share your pain, Frank.
Yes.
I've stayed up till dawn with whiskey going, why?
No, but I'll tell you what, it's led me to an overuse of the hyphen.
That's right.
Because now, instead of going all round the houses to the colon, I think, oh, I'll put a hyphen, I'll know what I mean.
Don't go down that track, Frank. Get off the hyphen now, son. There's people here for you. You don't have to go hyphen here. We can support you too. You're with friends here, Frank.
You know your hyphen will just wear out. Unless you regularly put some cream on it.
But the alternative is to
It'll be
use...
hanging down by your knees before you know it.
I don't want to be using a semicolon instead of what should be a colon, just out of laziness.
To be honest, I wouldn't know when you should use a colon or a semicolon.
No one uses a semicolon. That's why you don't have a semicolonic irrigation. That's
I believe that's the technical term for standing on your head in the shower.
Yes, the interrobang might be a useful new punctuation mark. And now, let's play...
How ironic is that?
Yes, I'm going to outline some situations, and all you have to do is to tell me how ironic they are and why. OK.
Is it out of 100?
No, you can just give me a sort of sense of just exactly how ironic you think they are.
I'm just worried about how we grade the irony.
OK.
I would say shiny,
Shall I tell you?
down to rusty.
Shall I tell you what the shades of irony supposedly are? Because I think what we're getting at is the word irony is often weirdly misused. People say, ironically, he wasn't there, or something. You know, you mean,
Invisible Man.
unfortunately. Yeah. So, there's verbal
He
irony.
was there.
Verbal irony, the opposite of what's as clear as mud, or, oh, this is a fine state of affairs, or whatever, which is slightly less than sarcasm. That's verbal irony. There's comic irony. Dr. Strangelove, gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room, for example, is a kind of ironic remark. That's considered generally ironic. Dramatic irony.
Little does he know that I'm
Yeah,
about
the
to-
audience knows Oedipus is the very murderer that he's hunting, as it were. It's a dramatic irony.
As in dive thoughts down to my soul, here Clarence
Yes,
comes.
that's just the kind of thing with Richard III and others. Yes, very good.
Ladies and gentlemen, an all-round entertainer.
And then there's Socratic irony, which is pretending to be dumber than you are, like a sort of, like Socrates, or like Columbo, Lieutenant Columbo of the greatest ever detective. There you are. God, like, isn't that the greatest ever show?
Like Socrates or Lieutenant Columbo.
Yeah. I would be hard put to
I know
say...
they both did that, but
Yeah.
beyond that, I haven't really...
I'd be hard put to say which was greater. I do happen to think Columbo is the greatest television series ever made.
Do you know,
I'd
Stephen,
absolutely
I
worship it.
absolutely agree with that.
I'm glad to hear you.
I once
Yeah.
spent a
Just
long
genius.
night with David Baddiel having an argument about whether Columbo had one eye or not.
Well, Peter Falk, you mean? Yeah.
Well, no.
Or
This
Columbo.
was the debate. My argument was that Peter Falk does indeed have one eye, but in Columbo, that eye plays the part of a real eye.
Yes. I think there's truth in that.
Yeah.
I absolutely
Columbo
agree.
has two eyes.
That's how good he was, I agree.
And what, how did this argument go on for so long? Was it like Women in Love?
Dave wasn't having it. He wouldn't have it.
He wouldn't have it.
No.
Were you wrestling naked in front of a fire? Women in Love.
Well, that was how we had to decide it in the end. We couldn't find a coin.
So what is this ironic? John Kendrick was an American sea captain who put into Honolulu Harbour in 1794 and was killed by the cannon which was fired to salute him. Now, we have this down as situational and arguably comic irony, though the audience was very sympathetic, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
That's fairly ironic.
It's pretty ironic, isn't
I
it?
think
We'll
it's
accept that as
almost
irony,
spangly.
yeah.
That's almost up in the spangly section.
Yes, yes. Well, now, what about Clement Vallandigham, who was an Ohio lawyer who died in 1871 while defending a man who was accused of murder during a barroom brawl? Now, in order to show the jury how the pistol might have gone off accidentally, this lawyer grabbed a gun, put it in his pocket, and reenacted the events as he imagined them. And sure enough, the pistol went off.
He was shot by a cannon?
No, the pistol went off, and he was killed by the gun in exactly the way that he was describing. So, just before he died from his own wounds, his client was acquitted.
And the good thing is, his client didn't have to pay.
No, exactly. It's kind of perfect. Situational irony, I think that would be called. But now, what about this Lincoln? Abraham Lincoln was shot while sitting in Ford's theatre, while Kennedy was shot while sitting in a Ford Lincoln. Now, many other coincidences like that. But that's just simply coincidence, not irony.
Reagan was shot in Washington, and Washington was shot with a ray gun.
If only that were true. It would almost be worth inventing a time machine and going back with a ray gun just to do that.
It's true, but nobody knew what a ray gun was then.
No.
So they just went, what's that?
There you are. Now, I have a picture. Is this ironic? Tell me if this is there something ironic about that? That you basically cut all the wool off a sheep and then knit it together again and put it back on. Yeah.
It's more ironic that we look at it and go, and then go,
Mince
I saw an
sauce.
advert from a meat supplier, and it said, caring for pork from farm to fork. And I just thought, there's a certain point where you just go, you're not really caring.
Not really caring.
I wouldn't call that caring when you're just going...
To me.
with the eyeballs to make sausages.
All right.
I snap off the side.
We're going to come across another ironic. This is rather ironic. In 1989, in America, convicted murderer Michael Godwin had his sentence reduced to life imprisonment after 5 years awaiting the electric chair. But he was then accidentally electrocuted while sitting naked on a steel lavatory seat in his cell in Colombia. He was trying to fix his television set. He bit into a wire and was electrocuted. That is a kind of cosmic irony, really.
That's not irony, that's God's will.
It's God's will. I think you may well be right. That's irony for you. The things we call irony often really aren't that ironic. Ironically, or not. Now, for some inside information, what's inside this? Anyone can tell me? It's a natural thing?
Well, it looks like a coconut.
It could be an elephant turd, couldn't it?
It could be. It isn't. This thing is actually a nut. Weirdly, the things inside it are not nuts, but the things inside it are familiar to all of us as nuts. This is how these grow. Here they are.
Oh, Brazil nuts.
Brazil nuts. They grow inside. These are actually seeds, but we call them nuts. Biologically, these are the seeds, and they grow inside this, which is the nut. They grow on top of the tree. They're very heavy. They fall down. They've been known to kill people. But it's a very strange life cycle they have, because this tree cannot be cultivated, so they're only wild. So it's only wild trees that produce these nuts, inside which are the Brazils. And they can only be pollinated by a very particular bee. And that bee will only be able to pollinate it if there is, in the area, a very particular orchid. So there's a really strange kind of chain of necessary life situations in order for us to get our purple quality street, essentially. There is something unique as well about the Brazil nut. As you probably know, there are people who are allergic to nuts. But the Brazil nut, uniquely, amongst all the nuts, this is really unfortunate, is you can sexually transmit Brazil nut to a partner. That is to say, if a male has eaten a Brazil nut and they inseminate a person who is allergic, that person's allergy will be affected by
Oh,
it.
that's a good murder plot.
Isn't it?
It is amazing. I actually feel right in the middle of an episode of House now. Because that is...
Isn't it
How on
extraordinary?
earth has that been found out?
Surely the woman would feel the Brazil nut.
I think you may have slightly misunderstood.
really.
May contain nuts. We must ask the QI audience, both the physical one here and those watching it television, to be our experimental cohort. And I want you all to eat Brazil nuts and then make love to your
I'll
beloveds.
eat the nuts.
Yep. Sean is volunteering
I'm happy to eat the
on that
nuts.
side.
You line up, I'll eat the nuts, and let's check it out.
Right. There you are.
Let's do this.
Let's do this thing for science.
Yeah.
Incidentally, does anyone know, in a packet of mixed nuts, why do the Brazils always rise to the top?
Surely nobody knows that.
You're right. You're right. I'm very impressed. It is a known and observable process that where in bags of muesli and nuts, that the Brazil nuts do seem to go to the top. And scientists have worked hard to try and understand why. At first they thought it was because the little ones settle down through and leave the big ones at the top. You may say, oh, why should they waste their time? There are all kinds of extremely good reasons. For example, sorting rubble after earthquakes and things like that.
I've got to be honest, I've never heard of an earthquake victim being crushed by a load of nuts.
No, nor have I. I'm talking about the science behind the lodgement and the dislodgement of solid
about
objects.
it?
Sorry?
You think because they'd be the heaviest.
I know, it
nut in
seems
the bag,
counterintuitive,
Because
yes.
in a box of muesli, it's the larger items, for example, the currants, go to the bottom.
Yeah.
You get a lot of currants in the last portion.
You do, don't you? The fact is, nobody knows precisely why it happens, but it does seem to be an observable phenomenon.
But if you get almonds
Yeah.
in mixed nuts, I find they rise to the top above the Brazil nuts. And I'm starting to think it could be
Alphabetical order. Almonds, Brazils, cashews, dates maybe, and so on.
Walnuts at the bottom.
Walnuts right at the bottom, yeah. Good, you're all doing extremely well. What do the signal bars on your phone mean?
Well, it means how much signal you can...
Don't be scared.
Well, they mean how
well
thing
you're
with the speed
receiving
in the
the
sky,
thing.
and it comes
Close
through,
to you.
and then it's not there, all gone.
You're getting it.
I need it in English, I'm
How
afraid,
much
in
you
order to
get-
be able to give points.
You've got a lot-
Talkie power, all gone away. Sky no fly down in here.
Big bird in sky.
Yeah.
You're either connected
Go
or you're
away,
not
be
connected.
talking no by.
Basically.
So
Me here,
levels
not
of
now.
connectivity are a bit
Yes, the
relevant.
fact is, really, again, I would have accepted a nobody knows card, too late now.
Me here, not
because
now.
basically, there is no standardisation between manufacturers and different handset makers have different ways of showing what is apparently a full signal, and we're all apparently really thrilled because, oh, look, I've got 5 bars going up. Absolutely meaningless.
How many nobody knows questions are there in this tonight?
Nobody knows.
What I find really annoying is when you're talking to someone on the mobile phone and it cuts out, and then when they call you back again, they say, oh, don't know what happened then. In the past, I've always said, well, it must be you because I've got 5 bars. But now,
Now
you're
you
telling
know,
me
exactly. I'm afraid that is... It is
you've
it's
pulled the
unfortunate.
rug from under me, Stephen.
I'm sorry to do that, but that's one of the things we do on this show. Nobody knows quite what the signal bars on your phone really signify. And now we sink our claws into the soft underbelly of knowledge and tear out the fetid entrails of general ignorance. So fingers on buzzers, please. What use is an inflatable anchor? Yes.
Is it for hot air balloons?
Very smart answer. No, that isn't. Yes.
Is it to stop submarines from going too low?
That's so sweet. When the surface is incredibly sandy and a standard claw anchor would have nothing to catch on to, you send down an inflatable one. It's a spike. It goes into the sand, and you then inflate it with fluid, not with air, in fact, and then it lodges in the sand, and that's what they're used for. Now you know. Good. Which animal did Richard I have 3 of on his
Now,
shirt?
can I suggest
Yes.
that at this point in history, no one in England had ever seen a lion? Is that possible? So, it's not a lion.
What did Richard I spend most of his time doing? I don't know. Crusading.
There weren't any lions in Arabia, were there?
There were lions all over Africa.
Bloody everywhere they were.
So he saw a lion.
They had
Wasps.
zoos. The
You
town of
couldn't have a
London
picnic.
had a menagerie. It's a little later, I grant you.
You had a picnic in those days. Not wasps. Lions. Get up! My sandwich!
What? Point is,
Decent lions! Swans are the bastards. He looks like, you know what he looks like? He looks like he's going, ooh, get you in your suit of armour. He looks like he's doing a sort of, ooh.
This is the badge of English royalty that was first used by Richard I. And it's three...
Well, I'm saying not to lions.
You're right to avoid the word
avoiding that
lions. They were known as leopards. They called them leopards. They were not particularly familiar with the difference between a leopard and a lion. A leopard really just means a bearded lion, leopard. And it's a heraldic thing. If they were in that shape, sideways on, those were leopards.
You know,
so there was a song, wasn't there?
There was a song.
Wasn't there, Frank Skinner?
And that would have caused me a lot of scanning problems.
Yes, it would, wouldn't it? It was based, however, on a lie. 3 lions
No, it was
on my
based
shirt.
on a lion.
3 leopards on my shirt.
Were they rampant or couchant?
Good question.
It's got a bit sign of the century.
Yes. They were actually passant gardant. But the rampant lion is the sign of the kings of Scotland.
Very hairy knees, the Scottish one.
Yes, they have that, haven't they? They would be called lions in heraldry, whereas the 3 lions on the shirt would, in fact, be known as leopards. So, which years did your song chart, Frank Skinner and David Baddiel's 3 Lions? It was number 1 in...
96.
Yeah.
And then again in 98.
Yeah. It charted in...
And then it charted in 2000.
And 2. It missed out 2000, I'm afraid.
Did it?
Yeah. 2002, 2006 and 2010. That's quite impressive.
I must check my platinum discs. Yes, it was... I think we can safely say we milked it.
You milked those leopards. You milked those.
Can I ask, was it big in any other country?
It got to the top 10 in... the Germans when the Germans actually won Euro 96, which is what the song was originally written for, they figured that they'd won the song as well. So they were on the balcony in Berlin, leading the crowd in 3 Lions on a shirt, yeah.
My God.
Now that's irony.
Very good. The fact is, anyone can get a grant of arms. You only need £4,225, which is cheaper than some, cherished number plates. Sir Christopher Frayling, the former chairman of the Arts Council, who's something of an expert on Clint Eastwood movies, took a motto which is Perge Scelus Diem Perficias.
Go ahead, punk, make my day.
Yes! Very good. In heraldic, proceed, varlet, and render perfect the day. But yeah.
On my coat of arms, it says Catatreia Sciatica. There is trouble in the duty.
What's the Latin for knick-knack, knocky-noo?
Frank Skinner's career as a pop star is, in fact, built on a lamentable terminological inexactitude, or lie. Now, name... If you can, see if you can name a living animal whose scientific name is exactly the same as its common name.
Is it a gorilla called gorilla?
Yes, unfortunately... I'm afraid that's right. Unfortunately, it's called gorilla, but the common name for it is just gorilla. There's only one animal we can think of where the common name for it is exactly the same as its Latinate...
Does it sound a bit Latin-y?
Sort of does, in a way.
Rhinoceros?
No, that's Greek, but it's not that, no. That doesn't sound very Latin at all. No, that's equus. Yes. No, it's not a mammal, OK?
Right. It's not a mammal.
Not a
Frog?
mammal. No, it's not. It's not. It's herpetic, it's ophidian, it's long and it's narrow.
A couple of words
Snake.
there, it just went-
Snake, it's a kind of snake.
Oh, it's a kind of snake, not snake.
No, it's a species we're after.
All right. I speak, because they don't... You know about them. You don't go, look, snake.
Yes, the
You go,
scientific
it's
name.
Snacus camunculus.
Exactly. There is one where precisely that...
Boa constrictor.
Boa constrictor is the right answer. Yes. The scientific name for the boa constrictor is boa constrictor. And as far as we can tell at QI, there is no other animal where that is true. There's some plants where it's true, aloe vera or whatever, but no living animal, as far as we know, except the boa constrictor, has the same common name in English as scientific name. Now, what's wrong with these bananas?
They're upside down.
Yes, is the right answer. They're upside down. Bananas do not grow like that. They grow like that. They grow upwards.
My area of expertise.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed. Well done. You probably know something else about bananas, which is quite interesting. And they have a quality, you might almost call it a negative quality, which some other foods have, including these. And that is they are faintly radioactive. Not that there's any harm in eating bananas, because the isotope in question for potassium is K40 is present in our bodies in any case, especially in men, in our little naughty areas.
Is that why they look like bananas?
No. No, actually, within the epididymes, these...
Speak for yourself.
Actually, yes.
I'm waiting for mine to stop being green.
Oh, no.
I'm more in the line with the Brazil nut.
How long is the half-life of the radioactive component of a banana?
I'd say 6 hours.
1.25 billion years.
Can he bit out then?
You weren't just a squad out there. But Brazil nuts contain radium and are 1,000 times more radioactive than other foods. We're told that if you walk into a nuclear power plant with a pocket full of Brazils, you're liable to set off the radiation leak alarm. True story.
And get a bit of a reputation.
Ah, yes. Definitely get a bit
Here
of a
he comes,
reputation.
cheeky chappy with his pocket full of Brazil nuts.
And an easy one to end with. Which country is the world's largest producer of Brazil nuts? Yes, Sean.
Costa Rica!
No. Ah. Nice idea.
Brazil.
Brazil? No! Brazil is the second largest exporter.
Bolivia.
Bolivia is the right answer. You were thinking it.
Sorry.
I suspect you were thinking of Bolivia Newton-John, which isn't quite the same. However, Bolivia is the world's...
Surely, with all those, all that radiation, it should be Bolivia neutron bomb.
You'd think. Which brings me to the nutty scores. Well, my goodness, my gracious, and my word. We have a tie for first place. And would you believe... not Harry Hill here, wonderful as he is, would you believe that our two winners are tied for first place? They're our first-time players, Frank Skinner and John Bishop, 4 points! And in third place, with minus 14 points, it's Sean Locke. But I'm afraid that the current that settled at the bottom of the box with minus 21 is Alan Davies. Well, that's your lot for this week. My thanks to John, Frank, Sean and Alan. And I'll leave you with these wise words from Groucho Marx. He may look like an idiot, he may sound like an idiot, but don't let that fool you. He really is an idiot. Good night.